Hello, and welcome to World Water Week. In sub-Saharan Africa, around 44% of the population relies on groundwater for drinking. Yet, the crucial resource is under significant threat from over-abstraction, in part due to its invisible nature. Drawing on groundwater in many parts of the world is outpacing its recharge rate, putting communities and ecosystems at significant risk, particularly in a world that is facing challenges of growing population, climate change, and greater urbanization. However, if managed well and with smart investments, sustainable groundwater management can be a boon for climate action, offering solutions for both mitigation and adaptation. I'm loving to dig into this topic a little bit more with our panel today. I'm joined by James Sauramba, the founding executive director of the Southern African Development Community Groundwater Management Institute, also known as SADC. He has dedicated his career to enhancing water and sanitation, urban development, solid waste management, transport, and climate change projects. Very welcome, James. We also have with us Anders Jagerskog, Program Manager for the Cooperation and International Waters in Africa Multi-Donor Partnership with the World Bank. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And Pera Ramoedi. I'm so sorry, Pera, let me say that again. Pera Ramoedi is the Executive Secretary of the Permanent Okavango River Basin Commission, a river basin organization established by three riparian states of Angola, Botswana, and Namibia to manage water resources of the Kubango and Okavango River Basin jointly. Very welcome.
Thank you.
James, I'd love to start with you. For those who don't know, tell us about the biggest challenges facing groundwater use today. Is it simply a matter of over-abstraction, or is there more to the story?
Thank you, Kanika. Thank you to your audience. Groundwater is faced with a lot of challenges at the moment beyond just over abstraction. I think one of the most important observations or facts is that in our region of SADC, around 70% of the population, especially in the rural areas, depend on groundwater for their livelihoods. We also acknowledge the fact that groundwater, more than 95% of all renewable freshwater resources are groundwater. But at the same time, our region is yet to fully exploit this resource. We're endowed with huge reserves of groundwater, but at the same time, we are accessing less than 5% of this resource. So if we are to edge towards utilizing this resource to support the sustainability of our communities, as well as the coping with the impacts of climate change, be it in mitigation or adaptation, we need to enhance its sustainable utilization to support our communities' livelihoods. But at the same time, we don't know too much about groundwater. I think it's a resource that people are so comfortable with punching holes, boreholes, abstracting it without really knowing what is happening underground. So we have the big challenge of data, good quality data that we require to analyze and to generate information and knowledge to be able to inform our decision makers how to exploit this resource to cope with the impacts of climate change. At the same time, whilst we have underutilization of the resource, we also have points or areas where it is over-abstracted, which means it causes a lot of other challenges, like subsidence of the ground. We also have areas where it is potentially polluted from human settlement activities, be it in agriculture, be it in urban development, industrial development, and so forth. So it's a resource that is a livelihood, or that is going to sustain the human race moving forward in conjunction with surface water under the impacts of climate change. But we need to know much more about it so that we can support our community. So that's groundwater.
Thank
we don't
you.
know enough.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really important point. I think I take away two things from that. One is the link to livelihoods, which I think is often overlooked when we're talking about groundwater. It's often a case of drinking water, but of course, there's a very important link to livelihoods as well, which is also sustaining people. And of course, this need for more data. And I think this is a recurring topic that we're hearing more and more about here at World Water Week this year. there is a huge need for more data on many of our different water topics. Para, I'd love to come to you next. What are you seeing as opportunities to address some of the challenges that have been raised by James?
Well, thank you very much. I think one of the most important things we have to do is make sustainable investment into addressing some of these challenges, particularly issues relating to governance of the resource. By and large, I'm coming from a basin organization which is focusing mainly on surface water management. And yet, underneath, we have a lot of groundwater that even supports the flow that we find in the river basins. Now, one of the things we have to do and try to focus on is to make sure that there's adequate governance that involves everybody on the resource management, particularly within our structures, where even our technical committees should involve dedicated experts with groundwater in mind. The region, because is also not one where there's been a lot of development, especially in my basin, the Okavango River Basin. There's a lot of opportunity for us to sustain the current integrity that is there by managing this resource in a very informed manner. What James was mentioning about data is actually a very serious issue that we're having also in the Okavango Basin. I recall one time when the countries were planning to do a water allocation strategy. One of the things they noted at the time was that if we don't know how much our groundwater is, therefore the total water balance that is there within the basin, it's difficult to start thinking about how much water we allocate for what needs. Therefore, it was quite important that subsequently, as a basin, we undertook a dedicated study to assess our groundwater resources. We are currently working with SADC GMI to develop a strategy for managing groundwater specifically, conjunctively with surface water. These are opportunities that if we do our maths well, we'll be able to realize the benefits that are inadvertently sometimes missed because management is not adequately attended to. So I think for me, we have to invest in this requirement and make sure that our money goes where we need to take it so that we are able to manage the resource effectively.
I want to jump on that question of investment. You've mentioned smart investment can help bring to scale or introduce new opportunities. What might some of these investments look like? What would you like to see more of?
Well, I would like to see more of, currently, most of our investment comes from the public sector, our governments. And there's need now to move into a position where even our private sector, the users of the resource, do contribute to the management and subsequently the monitoring of the resource. In a basin, for instance, where tourism is a high earning investment, you would want to see some of those tourism operators having a role to play in making sure that some of the investment from the receipts of tourism goes into managing the resource and subsequently making it available for the communities. I mean, most of our basins, at least the Okavango, drains mainly rural communities, which means livelihood is everything. And they are sustained in those respects by availability of the resource. And we want to give them alternative options so that they don't degrade the environment which the water resources depend on for its sustainability.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I think it's very interesting to think about how specific sectors can be contributing, and such as you've mentioned, tourism as one example. Anders, I'd like to come to you. It seems from the discussion that the climate community has an important role to play here. How is the climate community engaging with the question of groundwater management, and what would you like to see more of in the future?
Thank you very much, Kanika, and it's an honor to be on this panel today. I think there is more to be had in terms of the links between the climate community and the water community. I think we've heard that through the week here in Stockholm. Most of the changes that comes from climate change actually happens through water and are felt through water, whether it's floods, it's droughts, and the same. So there is scope to increase this much more. I think in the African context, and this is why we, as a program, as part of the World Bank, is supporting SADC Groundwater Management Institute to provide more knowledge and understanding, because as we see climate change, increasing population pressure, economic development, craving more water, surface water is being utilized and basins are, as we say, closing. So all of the water that can be used every year is being allocated. More attention is then being put to groundwater. And as James was highlighting and Pera as well, we don't have, generally speaking, enough data. So there is a need to understand the data much more and better in order to address and sustainably manage and use the groundwater resources. So therefore, we see the direct link between the climatic changes and the need to better understand and manage and use the groundwater resources. So as the World Bank, we are actively working in trying to address this in various parts of Africa.
So both James and Pera already touched on this a little bit, and we did in the intro as well, that groundwater, if management, if done well, can actually contribute to climate resilience. And so would like to come back to you, Anders, and ask you if you have any examples specifically from maybe the work that the World Bank is supporting, either with SADC or other organizations, of how you can share examples that highlight how that sustainable management is able to contribute to climate resilience.
Yes, I think, as you say, groundwater can certainly contribute to climate resilience. Let me take one example in addition to the work that we're supporting with James and SADC Groundwater Management Institute, and that comes from the Horn of Africa region, where the World Bank is supporting the countries in the borderlands between Somalia, Kenya, and Ethiopia, where you have nomadic groups that are moving across borders, but also in the borderlands. They often lack water, and we've seen in recent years, over the last decade, I'd say, increasing droughts affecting livestock, affecting opportunities then ultimately for livelihoods and for survival. And we are working with the communities, with the governments, in order to implement a program that supports sustainable groundwater management at the national level, but also because they are all connected at the regional level. So we are supporting and working with communities, and I want to underscore the importance of working with the communities in order to get their knowledge, their input. What do they need? In terms of supporting their livestock and other needs that they are having. So we have a large program there, close to $400 million over a period of 5 years, and this is a fragile region. So we are working with our UN partners, other organizations as well, to implement this, to help mitigate some of and adapt to the challenges that climate is bringing to these communities.
Thank you so much. I mean, I think it's really positive to hear that link back to communities who really are at the heart of all of this. And so I hear from all of you this need to continue to build information, build that data set, whether it be with numbers, as you said, Pera, or with community knowledge, as you've mentioned, Anders. James, let me come back to you. The challenges and solutions being presented today are multi-pronged and require participation from several different stakeholders. Who needs to be involved, and what successes have you seen in raising the profile of groundwater and climate challenges with decision makers?
Thank you once more, Kanika. I'll start by highlighting the theory of change for the conjunctive management of both surface and groundwater resources. I think, like Anders has mentioned, we cannot talk of groundwater without talking of surface water. So in that theory of change, it talks to this conjunctive management for the mitigation and the adaptation to the impacts of climate change. And this obviously talks to a vertical hierarchy of stakeholders, starting from globally, you go at local level, the communities, the different actors, and then you go to national level. Then you go to, in our case, we've got transboundary systems, the river basin organizations like Pera has just mentioned, and we also have the global partners like the World Bank and so forth. So when you look at who needs to be involved, groundwater is it's got a very long vertical relationship. Then I think one of the other aspects that we often sometimes don't talk about is the different sectors. Who are the consumers of this resource? What is this groundwater for? What is the surface water for? It is to support various sectoral activities. You talk of agriculture, you talk of tourism, you talk of other ecosystem services and so forth. So when you talk of who needs to be involved, you also look at the sectors, because groundwater or water at large exists in different forms. We had a meeting the other day with the World Bank where we were talking about water never disappears. It's either in one form or the other. So in order to then engage the stakeholders, you also have to understand in what forms does groundwater sit. And in our context in the region, we need to create an enabling policy, legal, regulatory, and institutional environment that supports the engagement in in the SADC region. We've got an apex kind of regulatory environment called the revised SADC protocol on shared water courses. It is a kind of a legal document that provides the institutional arrangements for our region, establishing the river basin organizations, other institutions that support the collaboration within both the surface and groundwater systems. At national level, we went through a project supported by SIWA to review all the policy, legal, and institutional instruments to find the gaps that are kind of blocking the sustainable management of groundwater and surface water resources. So all these talk to who needs to be involved to be able to support responsive climate action in our context. Thanks.
I mean, it's quite a variety of different actors, some which are usual suspects. Of course, we want to be speaking with our different kinds of donors and funders, stakeholders such as the World Bank, but also I'm very much picking up of what both you and Para have mentioned in terms of the importance of different sectors and bringing in those who are working with water but might not necessarily have it at the top of their mind. We're coming close to the close of our session here. Later this year, the Southern African Development Community Groundwater Management Institute, SADC-GMI, will host its 7th conference on groundwater with a focus on groundwater for climate action. As you look forward to the conference in November and, of course, the upcoming UN Water Conference in 2026, I ask all of you, what do you hope participants and supporters will bring with them into those discussions? I'll start with you, James.
Thank you once more. This is the 7th edition of our conference, and we bring together the big minds in groundwater, and we believe that we have another opportunity to link science with action for climate change. And the theme for the conference is groundwater supporting climate action. So we believe we are going to get brilliant ideas to carry forward this agenda.
Wonderful, and I hear from you a need for greater scientific minds on this. Anders, please, who do you want to, what are you hoping that participants will bring with them into these conversations?
Yeah, in addition to what James was highlighting, I think, and this is also building on what you said earlier, James, the importance of looking at groundwater management in connection with surface water management. They are not separate. Sometimes we treat them as separate, so I'm hoping that this is something that can come out of the conference, the importance of doing it conjunctively, as we say, looking at both surface and groundwater management as a way to address the challenges that comes with climate change.
Brilliant. So conjunctive management, looking at groundwater and surface water together. Para, what do you hope those bring into the conversation?
I definitely hope we'll get some insight in terms of where successes have been made utilizing groundwater, that which can then be mimicked by others to improve the management as well as the utilization of groundwater. In our case, we definitely need to make sure that we move the profile of groundwater to the same level, if not better than the surface water utilization. Because as James was saying, the bulk of the available water actually is groundwater after the glacier and others in terms of the whole water balance in the globe. So we definitely need to prioritize our attention to groundwater. And I hope some of the insights that we'll get from those who will participate will bring some of this to the fore, particularly in relation to how can we use this to manage this inherent climate change imperative that we are facing.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. We're seriously looking forward to hearing those success stories as you ask for them. James, Para, Anders, thank you so much for being here for this conversation. I've learned a lot. I'm sure our audience has as well. Really digging into the critical role that groundwater can play, both, and I think in a very positive way towards climate action. From the conversation, we're also reflecting on the importance of smart investment and financing. I also take away very much the need for more data and for how to bring in more community engagement into these discussions to increase resilience. We're very much looking forward to the conference of the outcomes of your upcoming conference, and also for all of these messages to be brought into next year's UN Water Conference. Thank you very much again, and thank you to our audience, both here in Stockholm and online, for joining us. Until next time, goodbye.